Welcome to episode 26 of Matthewlinity. This time I'll be looking at the verses at the end of chapter 4 and the verses at the end of chapter 7. It's because it's the little bit just before and just after the Sermon on the Mount, the bit that is really the frame. This is the frame for the Sermon on the Mount. We often study the sermon itself, what we call the Sermon on the Mount. The text just calls it the teaching, or the wise words of Jesus. Jesus' teaching, this big block of teaching, is framed. And we often don't study the frame, or if we try to, we study one part without the other part, and it helps to study both of them together. So I'll just read those verses out. Jesus went about the whole of Galilee, teaching in their synagogues, and announcing the good news of the kingdom, and healing every disease and every illness among the people. The word went out about him into the whole of Syria. They brought to him all who had various sicknesses and diseases and pains, those who were demon-stricken, who were moon-stricken, and paralysis-stricken, and he healed them. Many crowds followed him from Galilee and the Decapolis and Jerusalem and Judea and from beyond the Jordan. When he saw the crowds, he went up into the mountain, and when he sat down, his disciples came to him, and he opened his mouth and began to teach them. And when Jesus had finished these words, the crowds were amazed at his teaching, because he was teaching them with authority and not like their scribes. So what does this mean? He was teaching them with authority and not like their scribes. Their scribes don't teach with authority. And what does it look like? What are the people thinking that it's so impressive, so amazing? This authority, Jesus is teaching with authority, not like how their scribes normally teach. Their scribes don't normally teach like that. What is it? And so we could guess and say, well, maybe it's Jesus' tone of voice. It's very very deep and resonant, and the way he strings his words together. It's just so very lovely to listen to. It sounds like he's very, very certain of what he's saying. No, I don't think it's. I mean, maybe some people were impressed with the sound of his voice, but I don't think that's the most impressive thing. That is what is being commented here. And perhaps some people are impressed with this big outdoor teaching session. I mean, this is not a teaching session in a synagogue anymore. This moved beyond. So we see the progression where he starts out teaching in the synagogues and healing people, and he gets more and more popular. And so eventually, like, there are just so many crowds, like too many crowds to try to fit in a synagogue. So he's using the hill as some kind of amphitheater, so like where he's gone up the hill, gone uphill, up the mountain, and the crowds are all around the base, the lower part of the hill of the mountain, and so this is something that's you can't fit this many people in a synagogue. They've got many crowds, so maybe it's this open air teaching session that's really impressive. Like, whoa, he's teaching all of these people in the one go. This is really impressive. And I think maybe for some people that would have been. But I think there's an answer in the text that we can see what it's referring to when it says they were amazed at his teaching because he was teaching them with authority, not like their scribes. So if we go back to the first part of the frame, we can see there's another thing that sounds like their scribes, and that is their synagogues. So at the beginning, it said that Jesus set out, he was going about throughout all of Galilee, teaching in their synagogues. But started off talking about their synagogues, and it ends up mentioning their scribes. And if we look at what else is happening at that in the first part of the frame, is lots of healing is happening. And so if we go back to the second part of the frame and we read, they are astonished at his teaching. It's amazing because he's teaching with authority. So something is backing up his words. What is it that is support his words? His wise words are supported by something. What is it that backs up his words? What is it that gives him the right to be speaking? He's speaking with the right. He has the right to be speaking into their lives because he's just healed all of these people. So the crowds have brought to him all of their sick, all of their those who with various every kind of illness. It's saying it seems to be like a comprehensive thing. Like everyone who was sick, they brought to him, and he healed them. So this, I think, personally, I find this the most impressive thing, and I think that most people in the crowds would find this the most impressive aspect, that it's not just amazing, but it actually gives him the right to speak into their lives. So when it says not like their scribes, well, their scribes don't have a healing ministry. Their scribes don't heal people before they teach them. It's not what the scribes are doing. This is an amazing combination where it's not just teaching them, because the scribes could say some similar things but not have the healing that accompanies this kind of teaching. So what is it that's accompanying this kind of teaching, that's backing it up, that is really supporting and giving him the right to speak into these people's lives? It is the healing. He's been healing their sick. So their scribes don't have that kind of ministry. Not only do the healings support Jesus and give him this right to speak, this authority, they announce the kingdom. So if we go back to the first part, where we find it looks like three things are going on at the beginning: teaching, announcing, and healing. But I think that the announcing of the kingdom can be done in word or deed. So someone can announce the kingdom by speaking and saying, the kingdom has arrived, kingdom is here, make way for the kingdom is here, the greatest kingdom of all, good news everybody, it's here, it's happening. You can say it. You can say those words, or you can demonstrate something, demonstrating that the kingdom is arriving. And that's what the healing does. So when it says he was teaching in their synagogues, he was announcing or heralding the good news of the kingdom and healing all the various diseases and illnesses. It's not necessarily three distinct things. Particularly the second two things are very difficult to distinguish, because the healings the healings are the manifestation of, well, teaching is as well. I suppose they're all difficult to separate. If you really wanted to separate them, it becomes difficult. But particularly the actions of healing and the words of announcing, they are clearly two sides of the same thing. So the healings not only support Jesus, gives him the right to speak, they are examples or evidence of the kingdom arriving. They are announcing the kingdom. There is a little bit of a problem that I have with this passage. It does sometimes leave some of us feeling so if this is evidence of the kingdom, then why can't I get healing? There's so many people around who they can't get healing. Does that mean they're not in the kingdom? The kingdom's not happening. It's like what does that mean? And I think that's not really what this passage is trying to say. I think the implication was supposed to be there is something different about Jesus. There was amazing things happening which were signs. These were signs of the work and mission of Jesus. That this is something that we're not necessarily meant to feel bad if this is not being replicated in exactly the same way as what it was happening for Jesus. In fact, the very first thing that Jesus says when he opens his mouth and begins to teach the sermon, what we call the Sermon on the Mount, it starts out saying how great it is to be lacking in certain ways. The story that we've got here in Matthew, the point was more about showing the evidence that this is why people were listening to Jesus, this is why people were coming to Jesus. These healings were to support, listen to Jesus because of what he is doing. This person has the right to speak. That's all for this episode. Thank you for listening.